If you wanted to program a human being, you wouldn't need a chip in their neck. You'd need one sentence and the right man to believe it. Never surrender without a direct order from your superior. In March 1974, a thin man in a faded Japanese uniform walks out of the Philippine jungle and salutes. World War II ended 29 years ago. Lieutenant Hiroo Onoda did not. He hands over a rifle that still works, hundreds of rounds he never fired, grenades he never threw, and a dagger from his mother that he was expected to use on himself rather than be captured. The newspapers say he didn't know the war was over. He knew. He just didn't trust the source. For 3 decades, the outside world tried to overwrite his orders with leaflets, loudspeakers, even letters in his family's handwriting. He read them, weighed them, burned them. This isn't just a survival story. It's a live experiment in how far you can push obedience before it breaks reality, how one line of code, dropped into the right brain at the right moment, can outlast an empire. To see how a person gets rewritten like that, you don't start in 1945. You start 7 years after the war is supposed to be over, with 3 men around a fire and a stack of letters they refuse to believe. It's 1952, 7 years after World War II officially ended. Night in the hills above Lubang Island, Philippines. The air is thick and humid, filled with insect noise. 3 men huddle around a small fire. Hiroo Onoda holds a bundle of papers, thumbs smudged black from ink. The photographs are blurry, a woman who could be his mother, a note that sounds like his brother. The letters all say the same thing. The war is over. Come home. Onoda studies the Japanese characters. He feels the paper between his fingers. He examines the stamps. Shoichi Shimada leans in close, jaw clenched. Kinchichi Kozuka stares into the trees. Onoda clears his throat. These are enemy tricks. He holds the first photo to the flame. The paper curls, blackens, crumbles to ash. They stay silent and remind each other of their orders. What they don't know, they'll keep fighting a war that ended 7 years ago for another 22 years. Almost 11,000 more nights in the jungle. A baby born when the war ended will become a parent before Onoda walks out. The question is how. By morning, the jungle feels like a damp wool blanket wrapped around everything. Onoda cleans his rifle the way someone might tend to an altar, swabbing out the barrel, counting the ammunition. He touches the dagger his mother pressed into his hands before he left Japan. Everyone knows what that kind of dagger is supposed to mean. If capture comes, you're expected to use it on yourself, not the enemy. He carries it anyway, but somewhere deep down he decides he won't cross that line. There's a rule that lives inside him like bone: never surrender without direct orders from a superior officer. A leaflet won't change that. A loudspeaker won't change that. Only one person's command will matter. That rule has already kept him here for years. It will keep him going for almost 30. Out here, authority needs a real person behind it. A leaflet is just a voice without a face, a command with no breath behind it. In the jungle, paper is only paper. Trees that were saplings in 1945 are throwing shade over someone's shelter by the end. To see where that rule came from, you have to go back to December 1944 in the Philippines. A 22-year-old named Onoda sits in a small, cramped room that smells like oil and paper. He's fresh out of spy school, nervous, and checking his pockets repeatedly for his assignment orders. Today, he's finding out he's being sent to Lubang Island. Major Taniguchi sits across from him. The major is calm, neat, and straight to the point. No unnecessary words. Harass the enemy. Destroy supplies when you can. Gather intelligence. Don't die for nothing. Then he leans forward slightly. Never surrender without a direct order from your superior. He pauses, letting that sink in. It might take 3 years, maybe 5. But we will come back for you. That's a promise. Onoda doesn't forget that. He ships out with the essentials. His rifle is in perfect condition, spare parts wrapped and oiled, 500 bullets, already hard to come by. A few grenades, rice and dried fish, his orders, which he keeps like a sacred thing, and in his belt, a dagger from his mother, wrapped in cloth. She didn't write anything on it or explain it. Everyone understands the message without words. For Onoda, it becomes something twisted, a weapon he's supposed to use on himself, but also the line he quietly decides he won't cross. He cleans the rifle. He counts the bullets. This routine, this is where his conviction lives. He rehearses what he'll believe and what he'll ignore. Lubang Island is all folded hills and a coast that glints when the sun breaks through the clouds. The weather is relentless. His first days blur together, mud, mapping the terrain, trying to understand how to survive here. He's not alone. There's Corporal Shoichi Shimada, steady and quiet. Kinchichi Kozuka, younger and faster, always ready to move. And Yuichi Akatsu, who has clever hands and notices everything. They move like thieves, counting steps between trees, learning water by taste and sound. A footstep in the leaves tells you everything. A farmer walks different than a soldier. When you're this careful, a footstep is a whole story. The early operations are straightforward, but brutal. Enemy supplies stored too close to a path? They slip in at night, oil some rags, set a fire where no one will notice until it's too late. Rain turns fire into a slow, stubborn animal. The dry season turns it into a tiger you have to wrestle. They steal rice and hide it high where rats can't reach it, then move it before the rats figure out the pattern. They drop trees across trails just enough to slow people down, but not enough to give away their location. Nothing dramatic, just a long, quiet war of small inches against weather and exhaustion. By 1945, Allied leaflets start showing up in the hills. Propaganda, sometimes sloppy, sometimes good. The group doesn't read them as messages, they read them as clues. The paper isn't right for this climate. The ink smudges when you sweat on it. The official-looking stamp just looks like decoration in the jungle. They handle each one the same way. Examine it, find what's wrong, burn it, move on. Once you stop trusting something, you'll always find reasons not to. By spring, they've built a system, layers of routine and discipline stacked on top of each other. Dawn patrol to walk the same routes and deepen the map in their heads a little more. Midday is repair time when the heat keeps everything still and quiet. Late afternoon means hunting for bananas or yams, slow and careful so they don't create trails. Night watch rotates so no one has to move through the darkest hours alone. After every skirmish, they count their ammunition. And they count it even when there hasn't been any contact. Counting isn't just inventory. It's a way of saying respect to the things that keep you alive. It's how you make sure those things stay ready when everything depends on them. It's September 1949 when Yuichi Akatsu disappears. One night, he just doesn't come back to their hideout. No note, no fight, he's just gone. For Onoda and the others, that absence means something simple and terrifying. Either he's dead, he turned traitor, or he finally believed what the enemy's been telling them all along. But Akatsu doesn't die. He lives alone for about 6 months and then surrenders in March 1950. The news reaches them as a whisper first, then as leaflets, then as a voice crackling through a loudspeaker saying, Akatsu is safe. For Onoda, that's not comforting at all. It's actually worse. Because if the enemy knows Akatsu's name, they know all their names. They know where to find them. That's not safety. That's a trap. By 1952, the leaflets change. Now they show up with letters written in their family's actual handwriting. Real photographs. Stamps that look authentically worn. Those are the letters by firelight at the start. 3 men examining each piece like it's a trap and a lifeline at the same time, hunting for anything that doesn't add up. A weird phrase. A greeting no brother would ever use. Reading a letter correctly has become a survival skill. Onoda says it slowly, like he's carving the words into himself. Unless my direct superior stands in front of me and orders me to surrender, I will not. Shimada nods. Kozuka stays silent, which means he agrees. When they're done, the letters end up in the flames, like all the others. 7 years have passed since the war officially ended. That's long enough to turn stubbornness into something like religion. In 1953, during a run-in with a patrol, Shimada gets shot in the leg. Just one burst of noise in months of silence. In the jungle, a wound like that is basically a death sentence, unless you get lucky. They boil water, clean a knife, cut away cloth, clean it out, bandage it, and hope. The leg swells, then slowly gets better. He limps through the rest of the year, sleeping with his back against a tree so he can jump up in one motion if he hears something wrong. In a tropical jungle, anything can kill you. A scratch becomes infected. Heat feeds bacteria. Humidity keeps wounds from closing. Every mosquito bite is a gamble. Antibiotics would save them. Instead, they have boiled water and pure stubbornness. That's great for morale, but terrible for your actual body. May 1954, near the shore, a Philippine army training exercise puts soldiers in the wrong place at the wrong time. They see movement, there are shouts, gunfire, Shimada goes down. Onoda and Kozuka drag him back until they can't anymore, then they have to leave. There's no dramatic speech, no vows, just the sound of breathing and the careful silence of men who know that noise brings attention they can't survive. Now it's just Onoda and Kozuka. When there are 3 of you, you can scout, raid, and rest in shifts. When there are 2, everything exhausts both of you. You sleep, but you're not really sleeping. Your mind stays awake even when your eyes are closed. The raids they do now are almost pointless. They know burning a rice pile is a message nobody will read, but they do it anyway because it reminds their own hands that they're still soldiers. While Onoda's world gets smaller and smaller, the outside world just keeps moving. January 24th, 1972, on Guam, 2 hunters wrestle a thin man near the Talafofo River. His name is Sergeant Shoichi Yokoi. He's been living underground for nearly 30 years. When the cameras find him, he bows and says something that will follow him forever. It is with much embarrassment that I returned. That one sentence says a lot about honor and shame in his culture. Nearly 30 years after the war ended. And he's apologizing for staying alive. People watching cry and argue at the same time. Here's where it gets interesting. There's no simple villain here. The defeat isn't about losing a battle, it's about an idea losing its grip. A machine was built to make men refuse surrender, and that machine is about to meet the only thing that can actually stop it. The same machine telling them to quit. But it can't speak through a leaflet or a stamp. It has to speak with a real voice. It has to be a real person standing there. October 19th, 1972, rice fields near Lubang. Onoda and Kozuka set a small stack of rice on fire. Police show up immediately. The fight is fast and brutal. Kozuka goes down. Onoda drags him by the straps until he realizes it's over. There's nothing he can do. He runs, not because he's a coward, but because that rule is still pulling him forward. He has to hear an order from the same kind of authority that sent him here. Now, completely alone, he tightens everything. His routes, his routines, his hiding spots. He adds extra steps to every ritual. When you're the only person left maintaining the system, one mistake can kill you. Before October 1972, he had one person. After, he had no one. Between 1972 and 1974, 3 famous cases all end. Yokoi on Guam in January 1972, Onoda on Lubang in March 1974, and Teruo Nakamura on Morotai in December 1974. After decades of hiding, all 3 wars end within a short window, deep in the Lubang jungle. On February 20th, 1974, sunlight filters through the leaves in thick shafts. A young man in worn boots and a knit cap steps off the path and calls into the trees like he's saying hello to someone across the street. His name is Norio Suzuki. He's lean from hiking, polite but not pushy, the kind of person who stands their ground without making a fuss about it. He's read about the soldiers still hiding out here, and he knows that letters and official messages haven't worked. But maybe one real person, speaking face to face, could do what thousands of messages couldn't. He calls out, "Onoda-san," just the name, not lieutenant, not soldier, and adds, "The Emperor and the people of Japan are worried about you. The bushes move." A thin man with a rifle steps out and looks Suzuki over carefully, like he's trying to read him. He notices the scuffed boots, the hands without rifle calluses, the way Suzuki stands easy and calm. They talk. Suzuki starts with simple stuff: weather, water, streams, food. The things 2 people living rough would actually care about. Then he asks, "If I bring your commanding officer here, will you listen to his orders?" Onoda doesn't hesitate. "I won't surrender unless my superior officer tells me to." Suzuki nods and says he'll come back with Major Yoshimi Taniguchi. They part carefully, respectful of each other's space. Here's the thing about a chain of command. It's built on trust in people, not papers. Papers can be faked. Radio signals can be jammed. But if you trust one person, just one, then that person's word means everything. Onoda isn't denying reality. He just needs it to come from a specific mouth. Suzuki heads back to Japan and gets to work. He tracks down a man from Onoda's past and somehow convinces him to walk into a jungle for a single sentence. It takes days of phone calls and pure stubbornness. Back in the jungle, Onoda sticks to his routines, moving at night, checking his supplies, never letting hope make him careless. He's learned that staying calm means staying alive. March 9th, 1974. Two men walk into a clearing. One is dressed like a civilian now, but you can still see the soldier in how he carries himself. Major Taniguchi, though people call him Mr. Taniguchi now. He's holding a piece of paper he doesn't really need. Suzuki is next to him, tense and watching. Then Onoda appears, pulled forward like he's been waiting for this his whole life. The rifle hangs easy in his hands, barrel down, not a threat, just habit. The men exchange stiff, formal greetings, the kind people use when they're speaking a language they learned long ago. Taniguchi reads the order. It's plain and simple, which matters because plain language can't be twisted into a trick. This order fits exactly what Onoda's been carrying in his chest all these years. He listens, he works the rifle's bolt once, like closing a book, lowers the weapon, and salutes. The next day, March 10th, Onoda walks into the base and hands over what he's been keeping. A rifle that still shoots, hundreds of rounds of ammunition never fired, grenades never thrown, a dagger never used, a weapon he's oiled and maintained for nearly 30 years with no supply line. Ammunition he's counted so carefully that counting became meditation. March 11th in Manila, bright lights, microphones, crowds of curious people. President Ferdinand Marcos gives him a full pardon. Onoda stands tall, uniform pressed, the face of someone who's been invisible for nearly 3 decades. The news spreads fast, and people gasp at the headline. But the people living near Lubang feel something numbers can't capture, the fear they remember, the loss, the relief, the anger, the messy kindness of it all. Stories pile up around him, whether he wants them or not. The same system that once told him never to surrender now tells him to surrender, and he obeys both with the same quiet clarity. The institution defeats itself in the only way he could accept, by speaking with its own voice. December 1974 on Morotai Island. Tall grass sways in the wind. An Indonesian Air Force search team moves slowly through the landscape, rifles ready. The lead man knows what to look for, a cut stem pointing the same direction as the last, a faint trail where the ground shows signs of footsteps, smoke rising from somewhere unexpected. They find a hut behind some trees. The wood is straight, the lines neat. There's a garden beside it with rows so perfect they look measured. This is Teruo Nakamura, though he was born Atun Palalin, drafted from the Amis people of Taiwan nearly 30 years earlier into a Japanese volunteer unit. He's been alone so long that silence feels like company. When the searchers appear, he doesn't run or fight. He thinks it through, like a farmer checking the weather, then he gives up. The search team moves carefully through the clearing, reading the signs. Footpaths that curve around puddles. People care about staying dry. Animals don't. A cut stem that regrew a different way. The color telling you roughly when the knife went through. Smoke from cooking fires. These signs point forward, and the team follows them quietly, approaching the hut like you'd approach a door you've been warned might be locked. Nakamura's story ends differently than Onoda's. He goes to Taiwan, not Japan. There's less ceremony and more question marks about what happens next. But by the calendar, he's the last one, the final period at the end of a chapter everyone thought had closed long before, when Onoda surrendered in Manila. Other men had been found too. In a tangle of jungle on Guam, 2 locals found a man and brought him in without shooting. In Lubang, villagers lived scared for years, then watched a shadow turn into a person. And here in Indonesia, a search team chose patience over force. In a story full of men following terrible orders, these moments mean something else, following better ones. The letters came by firelight. The rule stayed the same, from the first night by the fire to the last day in Manila. Don't surrender unless an officer tells you to. And that's what finally happened. One direct order ended it. What started as him ignoring countless pieces of paper ended with him listening to a single voice. Years disappeared. Friends died. Damage spread everywhere. But one sentence changed everything. The last order broke the spell of all the orders before it.